Hi folks, this is Benjamin. Welcome back to Bigfoot Lovers. Today's story comes from Clara Porter, now 78 years old. She contacted us just a few months ago to finally share what happened to her back in 1954. It took place deep in the Cascade Mountains of Washington, during a solo hunting trip. Clara was badly injured and left for dead in the snow, but something found her. Something not human, and it saved her life. She was 27 years old back then, a skilled hunter used to being alone in the woods. That year, in the last week of October, she packed up her gear and set off for a solo elk hunt in the Goat Rocks Wilderness in Washington state. She packed light, a bolt-action rifle, a small pouch of dried jerky, a metal matchbox, a compass, and her old army sleeping bag, olive green, still tough after years of use. No radio, no map. No one knew her exact route. That was how she liked it. The snow had just begun falling in patches across the higher elevations, but Clara wasn't concerned. She'd handled worse. The first day went as planned. She made camp near a creek, followed fresh tracks, and even spotted a young elk in the distance. But the next morning, everything changed. Around mid-morning, she found fresh bull elk tracks leading up a rocky ridge. She followed them up, moving slow, steady, cautious. But the rocks were slick with early frost. Just one wrong step. That's all it took. Her foot slid out from under her. She tried to catch herself, but her shoulder struck a jagged edge, and she tumbled. 30 feet, straight down. Bones hit stone. She heard a snap in her side. Then everything went black. She came to in the snow. She couldn't move her left arm. Breathing hurt. Ribs were likely cracked. Her coat was torn and soaked through. Blood was seeping into the snow beneath her. She lay there for a long time. No strength to stand. No voice left to call out. The forest was still. Cold crept into her back, then her legs, then her chest. She remembers watching her breath rise and vanish into the air, slower. That's when the thought hit her, clearer than anything. This is it. This is how it ends. She doesn't remember much after that. Just the sound of wind in the trees, the sting of her fingers freezing, her eyelids growing heavy, and then nothing. What happened next would change everything. Clara came to slowly. She was no longer lying in snow. There was warmth. A fire crackled nearby. Her back rested on something soft. Heavy fur pelts were laid across her chest and legs. She tried to move her left arm. It was stiff, but she could feel that it had been wrapped and set. Someone had treated her injuries. Her eyes adjusted to the dim light. She was in a cave. The walls were stone. The floor was packed dirt. There was a low burning fire giving off smoke and heat. The air smelled of pine, wet earth, and something else. Strong, musky, and unfamiliar. Her mouth was dry. Her ribs ached. But she was alive. Her first thought was that a hunter or trapper had found her. Maybe someone living off the grid. She tried to sit up but couldn't. Her body wasn't ready, so she lay back and waited. She listened. The cave was quiet except for the fire. No voices. No tools. No movement. Then she heard it. A soft shuffle near the entrance. Not boots. Not shoes. A heavy, dragging step. Slow. Controlled. Whatever was outside wasn't in a hurry. She watched the shadows on the cave wall shift. A large shape passed across the entrance. Broad shoulders, long arms, walking upright. But it wasn't shaped like a man. Clara's heart started to pound. Whoever had rescued her wasn't human, and they were close. They came in together, quiet, steady. The first was clearly male, the second, female. Both were massive. at least 8 feet tall, maybe more, covered head to toe in thick, dark brown hair. Their bodies were powerful, broad shoulders, long arms that nearly reached their knees, and heavy, padded feet. Clara stayed still, pretending to sleep, but her eyes followed every movement. Their faces weren't like gorillas. More flat, more human-like. The male had a heavy brow and deep-set eyes. The female had a smaller frame, though still taller than any man Clara had ever seen. Her eyes were black, but calm. Watchful, not threatening. Neither wore clothing. They didn't carry tools or weapons. Just thick, natural fur, dense enough to survive the cold without help. When they moved, they did so with care, making almost no sound despite their size. The female came closer. In her large hands was a carved wooden bowl, steaming with a thick, earthy stew. She knelt slowly and placed it beside Clara. Then she offered a second bowl with a warm drink, pine-scented, slightly sweet. Clara didn't speak, didn't try to run. She was too weak, but more than that, she wasn't afraid. These beings hadn't harmed her. They had set her arm, built a fire, fed her. That's when it clicked. They weren't people, but they weren't wild beasts either. Clara had heard the stories growing up. Now she was looking at them with her own eyes. Bigfoot. A male and a female, and they had saved her. They never spoke a word. Not to each other, not to her, but they understood her. When Clara was in pain, the female brought warm broth. When she was cold, more fur was laid across her. When she grew restless, the male gently adjusted her bedding. He moved with surprising care, no sudden motion, no sign of aggression, just quiet strength. The female checked her arm twice a day, replaced the wraps, and brought chewed roots that numbed the pain. At night, one of them always stayed at the entrance, sometimes standing, sometimes crouched, but never asleep, always watching. No chains, no barriers, just silent protection. Clara didn't understand how they knew what she needed, but they did. And over time the fear faded. She stopped flinching. She stopped waiting for something to go wrong. Whatever these beings were, they didn't want to hurt her. They wanted her to live. Clara stayed in that cave for about 6 or 7 days, long enough to heal, just enough to walk. Each day, the female brought her food, root stew, wild berries, and a thick drink made from pine and herbs. She used moss to clean the wounds, and packed crushed plants into a poultice that eased the pain in Clara's ribs. The female checked her arm often, gently unwrapped and rewrapped the bandages. The care was consistent, patient. By the 4th day, Clara could sit up without help. A day later, she stood on her own for a few moments, leaning on the cave wall. During quiet moments, Clara studied them. They were alert, careful in every movement. They took turns watching the entrance. They communicated through gestures, not sound. They weren't wild animals. They acted with reason, with awareness. And more than anything, they never let her feel alone. On the 7th morning, Clara woke to find her coat and boots laid neatly beside her. The fire was burning low. The cave was quiet. The male Bigfoot stood near the entrance, motionless, watching her. He didn't make a sound, but something about his posture told her it was time to go. Clara sat up slowly. Her ribs still ached, and her arm throbbed with every movement, but she could stand. She dressed in silence. Her coat was patched with strips of bark and moss. It wasn't pretty, but it would keep her warm. Her boots had been cleaned. One was missing a lace, but they were dry and usable. She followed him without question. Outside, the forest was covered in fresh snow. The air was sharp, clean, and bitter cold. The male led the way, stepping slowly so she could keep up. He didn't reach for her or carry her, but every few minutes he turned to check that she was still behind him. They didn't take a trail. Instead, they moved through thick brush and narrow ravines, weaving through pine trees and across frozen streams. She had no idea how far they went. Maybe a mile, maybe more. It felt longer with every step. Then, without warning, he stopped. Ahead was a narrow path, barely visible beneath the snow, but Clara recognized it. It was part of a ranger trail she'd used once before, years back. She looked at him. He didn't nod, he didn't wave. He simply turned away, walked a few feet into the trees, and was gone. No sound, no trace, just gone. Clara stood there, alone, for a long moment. Then she started walking. Her legs were weak, her breathing shallow, but she had direction now. About an hour later, she saw smoke rising through the trees. It was a forest ranger cabin. She knocked once before the door swung open. The ranger stood there in shock. His eyes went wide. "You're Clara Porter," he said. "We thought you were dead." She didn't say much, just nodded. He brought her inside, gave her water, sat her by the fire, and radioed for help. The ranger told her she'd been missing for nearly 2 weeks. They had searched by air and ground. The snowstorm had covered her last known trail. Search parties gave up after the 6th day. Paramedics arrived the next morning and took her to the nearest hospital. Doctors confirmed fractured ribs, a dislocated shoulder, and signs of frostbite, but they were puzzled by the way her wounds had been treated. There were moss wraps, cleaned cuts, and herbal poultices they couldn't identify. Primitive, but effective. She healed slowly but steadily. No infection, no complications. The doctors said someone had done good work out there. They asked her who helped her. She told them it was a man who lived off the land, a silent type. She never gave them the truth. For years, Clara kept that part to herself. She told no family, no friends. Not because she was scared, but because no one would believe it. In 1999, she told the story once. A cryptid researcher from Oregon sat down with her and recorded everything. He believed her, promised to share it after reviewing his notes, but he passed away before that ever happened. That tape was never found. Now, in her late 70s, Clara decided it was time. She wrote to Bigfoot lovers with every detail she remembered. No money asked, no spotlight wanted, just the truth, before it was too late. She ended her letter with one line. "Maybe weren't people, but they didn't leave me. They watched over me. They saved me." Clara said it best. Whatever they were, they saved me. Treated me gently, like one of their own. This wasn't just a sighting. It was survival. It was gratitude, and a kind of grace you don't expect in the wild. These beings didn't speak, but they acted with care. They didn't run. They didn't hide. They stayed with her until she could walk again. And now, I'll ask you, what would you do if something not human saved your life? Thanks for joining me here on Bigfoot Lovers. If you believe Clara, or you've seen something yourself, leave a comment below. Don't forget to subscribe. We've got another chilling encounter coming soon. You won't want to miss it.